podcast which I am presenting on today is Reading Coaches, Policy, and Reading Instruction with Dr. Cynthia Coburn. Dr. Coburn is a policy researcher from the University of California, Berkeley. Dr. Coburn is a policy researcher, which means she is looking at how policy is implemented within the educational world. So she was looking at this study with how do teachers respond to a policy or not. So this was a study done on school leaders and literacy and reading coaches and how they interacted with teachers. She wanted to see if policy initiatives with reading first and how that was implemented within the classroom. So this study was looking at the practices before as well as the practices after. There was a great deal of diversity within the school building in which she went and did her research in. She found that as teachers were doing educational practices, each one of them had different types of assessments which they were using for reading. Now, with part of the reading first criteria, which was being implemented in this building during this study, there were multiple types of assessments being used. The Dibbles assessment was one of them. The school was already practicing that. During this assessment, they were also using guided reading workshops with younger students. They found that guided reading workshops as part of reading first was not considered part of the assessment process. So they began using different types of textbooks to assist. So the teachers were more receptive to changes when they were coming from a reading coach as compared to policymakers or principals. During the study, Dr. Coburn found that coaching really does matter. Teachers began to make huge changes within their classroom practices when they came with a coach or had coaching assistants within the classroom. Examples would be that teachers responded better to hearing about new policies and practices. Teachers knew that they needed to respond to new literacy approaches, but they weren't always sure how. Having time to work with a coach, try out a reading practice, and then dialogue about how it went well or not so well, and then what could we do differently, vastly improved the teacher's performance within the classroom in regards to reading instruction. Dr. Coburn found that coaching enables refining over time. When it comes to making changes in the classroom ecosystem, making changes helps with the coaching implementation. There wasn't a whole lot for parents in regards to the study. However, there were for principals as well as policymakers. With principals, the mechanisms in which teachers implement practices within their classroom comes from that additional support from a teacher literacy coach or a reading coach. Coaches can help to persuade but also pressure. In regards to policymakers, when funding is cut for reading coaches or reading literacy specialists within buildings and districts, that greatly impacts teacher instruction as well. Coaches have to be able to navigate the tensions that are set by someone else. They have some difficulties within their job. Coaches get placed in tough positions because principals often want to know about classroom practices for effective evaluation purposes. And then coaches can be used as a support and a teammate. They shouldn't be used as an evaluation system. Policy implementations would be focusing on how important literacy coaches really are as they support teachers in that professional development. So how do we get literacy and reading coaches? They're typically really good teachers that are taken out of the classroom and put into the coaching position. However, in order to be effective within this instruction, these literacy coaches who were former classroom teachers need explicit professional development as well as learning opportunities themselves to then go and work with the education and the educators within the classrooms. So upcoming research for an understanding of what happens with literacy coaches and what could be is a focus of new studies for Dr. Coburn. She's also wanting to know about how coaches work within other classroom conditions. Would there be the same kind of coaching growth within educators if there weren't necessarily strong monitoring systems? So what's next? She wants to know about the political implementation that comes from pressuring and compliance with coaching. She's looking at the coaching behaviors, how are they most helpful, and which ones tend to get in the way. So Dr. Cynthia Coburn is from the University of California, Berkeley, and she is published in the Reading Research Quarterly, Volume 47, Issue Number 1.